Hi everyone, I'm Jen, and I own a veterinary technician relief business.
And I'm Michelle. I own a mobile veterinary technician business.
And you are listening to Endless Journeys, the Vet Tech Odyssey podcast. In this podcast, we will be discussing and meeting with credentialed technicians who have created their own path with business ownership within the veterinary space.
Our goal is to help inspire burnt out vet techs before they leave the industry altogether through our stories and the stories of other veterinary technician business owners.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Endless Journeys, the Vet Tech Odyssey podcast. And this is Jen speaking.
And this is Michelle speaking.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Not too bad. It is a beautiful Monday afternoon. It is my day off, and I am chatting with you and looking forward to starting this podcast.
Yes, me too. I've been super excited about this podcast, and I hope everyone else who's listening right now has been just as excited. At this point in time, we just wanted to introduce ourselves a little bit, with this first episode. Just kind of tell you about our journey, introduce our backgrounds, our businesses, and, the specific mission that we want to do behind this podcast. So, with that, I am just going to let Michelle start talking. And, how has your week been? Like, what have you been doing? Anything special going on just this past weekend or past week?
Yeah, so actually last week was like one of my heaviest weeks of the month. So I'm still kind of recuperating. As a mobile vet tech, I have a set schedule that reoccurs every 4 weeks. So last week was definitely the heaviest one of the month, and I'm kind of exhausted, but I got a lot of rest this weekend, which was much needed. Especially Wednesday was my biggest route. I love it. I served like 23 households on that day, I think.
Oh my gosh, in
And
one day?
yeah, I think it was 23 houses. And I want to say most of them have like double pets on that route. So probably 40 something pets from the hours of 9 till 6. So it's wild. And
Oh
each
my
house is
gosh.
each house is 5 minutes away from each other. So I just crank them out. And then for 2 days after, I'm like, woo, I made it through my Lake Orion route. I am done for the week. Everybody leave me alone.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So yeah, but one of my favorite routes. Yeah. And talked to Jen. My own dog was a little sick earlier this week, and we found out he is loaded with gas. But he's doing just fine now, and I'll find out his blood work results here in a couple days. But upon X-ray, my Doberman, which a lot of people know, Bronson, my security guard, gave us a little scare over the weekend. But that was round up my week.
Yeah. I know you said that yesterday. And we almost had to postpone this recording today because she was like, oh my gosh, she's not doing well. I have had a little bit of background in nutrition. I actually used to own my own nutrition business. So as she was kind of talking to me about everything, she was like saying, well, I did change his food. But also like with both of us and our experience being like in the vet field, especially me being ER, all of the things like worst case scenario, right? Like we always jump to worst case scenario being the owners. And you're automatically thinking all of the horrible things that you see in vet med. But at the same time, I was like, you did change his food. So it sounds like it could just be really bad gas. So let's just hope for that. And then we'll take it from there.
Yes, which is exactly what it was. And I'm glad I had you to talk to. And if you are a mobile vet tech, it can get very lonely out there when you're not in a clinic anymore. You feel almost a little bit detached, and it's your own pets. You can't just call your boss and be like, hey, this was going on. I now have to wait it out like a client. So when I was talking to Jen, I'm like, I had a little bit of reassurance that he was going to be okay. And when the tech today came back and the doctor came back, they're like, it was awfully impressive at the amount of gas he has in him. He's going to be okay. So yeah, that was my scare.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, dude. I mean, I've been there too so many times. It's like, I work in emergency. I see things every day and I'm so calm in that situation. But if something's happening with my dog, I have my certain list of people that I talk to or my certain list of people that I text. And I'm like, okay, calm me down and treat me like, don't know anything. Basically I'm stupid right now because it's my own pet. So I have no idea what to do. And you just go through that frenzy. So it's really nice to have those people. I never even thought about that when you are like doing your own mobile business and you are the only employee, then yeah, you don't really have that anymore. And no, that's a little sad, but I'm glad that you figured it out. And I'm really glad that Bronson is okay.
Me too. Yeah, he scared me. I mean, most people know he's my security guard. He comes to
Mm-hmm.
work with me. He's got his work uniform. He's my ride or die buddy. So I'm like, oh, no, this can't be the big C word. Like, no way. Because I've seen it
Right.
before in other dogs. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
professional blinders on, doomsday scenario. So once I got
Right.
him in today and got blood work and x-rays, he's just hanging out on the couch now, like, all right, what do we do next, Mom? So that's,
Oh, that's so great. That's
yes.
awesome.
Yes. How was your week, Jen? What did you do? You got some great news.
Yeah. So because I wasn't busy enough, I decided to get a puppy. So I officially have an 8-week-old golden retriever puppy. I already have 2 other dogs. So this is actually going to be the first time that I've actually owned 3 dogs at one time. My other 2 dogs, I have a golden retriever. He just turned 7. And then I have a first generation little Labra doodle mutt. She's my little mutt, I call her. She's just turned 6. So I don't know. We just thought it would be fun, me and my husband, that we weren't busy enough, with the podcast and with me owning my own business. And then with him, working during their summertime, we are like, let's get a puppy. So it'll be his first official puppy. So, but honestly, he's actually been really, really good. We've had the whole weekend to have a schedule and to be training him. And he loves his kennel. Like, so it's just, we get up and, we go potty, and then now it's playtime, and then now it's nap time, and then now it's potty time. And so he's been amazing, and we're already training him on the leash. We already did a little bit of leash training yesterday, and he was really good with that. And then I obviously all morning long I'm trying to get this settled, but also trying to get him, settled too. And now both of my dogs are stressed out, and everyone's just a little stressed out this morning, but we got to figure it out. And he is sleeping in his kennel right now, because he's such a good boy. And then that's what I did. And then all last week I just worked. I work at one of the local emergency clinics pretty much every week, about 2 to 3 days a week, every other week. And then last week I did like three 10-hour shifts in a row. And then I worked a really late swing shift. So I worked the 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift, which I like working swing shifts, but sometimes it's just a lot. And then having to wake up at noon is not great, because then you feel like you've slept the day away. But for the most part, it was a really, really busy week. And I mean, we even woke up the next day. I got off at 2 a.m. and I woke up the next day and had to be up by 10 a.m. And then we drove. It was like a 6-hour day to go get the little puppy. So it was a long week. It's been a long weekend, but it's all worth it in the end. It's always fun. It's summertime, man. This is the time. If you're going to do it, this is the time.
And especially where you live, right? I mean, you're up in the beautiful Idaho area, right by Washington, so it's got to be gorgeous right now.
Right. It is. Honestly, it was kind of a little bit rainy this weekend, but we kind of see that on and off in June anyway. But it's still nice. Yeah, it's beautiful. And this is it's camping season, and it's going to be 4th of July, and it's always beautiful here. So that's why I, try to also make my schedule every other week, not working as much, so that I can enjoy it, and then also have the weekends off, which is really important to me now, since I never had weekends off before in my past. So yeah, that's what I did this week.
Isn't that the best, is creating your own schedule, having the weekends off, not working the holidays. You can get home on time. You can do what you want. I have a very similar schedule. So I have the best banker hours schedule. Mondays are my days off, but I work all day Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday with a half day Friday, and then back off again Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But Mondays are kind of my adulting get errand done days.
Right.
But it's nice, and I never had that in a clinic before. And if I need to take time off to take my dog to the vet or go to the dentist, my clients are understanding, and they're like, no problem, Michelle, we'll reschedule us. We'll see you in a few days. And that's the beauty of being your own boss, is you can make your schedule like Jen's, to where you're out hiking on the weekends, or making schedules like me, where I just sit around and watch Golden Girls for 72 hours straight on the weekend.
I love that.
Yeah, and I'm a huge Gigi fan. I play in Golden Girls Trivia, and we are Golden Girls Trivia champ, and
Oh
I
my
take that
gosh.
very seriously. So yeah, that's what I do for fun.
Oh my gosh, no, I love that. I love that. I love Friends. Friends is like, that's like my go-to. And The New Girl. Those are like my two absolute favorite shows. The Golden Girls, though, oh my gosh, that is so funny. But yeah, no, I do. I mean, obviously, a big reason why I decided to go this route was because I wanted to start making my own schedule because I love emergency so much. And I was always in that in between of I want to work emergency, but I'm so sick of working the weekends and, overnights and things like that too. The swing shifts aren't like the late swing shifts aren't my favorite, but it's where I'm needed right now. So, I just deal with that. But they really, really want me to work overnights. And it's like, I just can't do that. So at this point in time, I get the weekends off. I get to choose my own schedule. And that's really the biggest blessing out of this whole thing. And sometimes I think that people, and they think that like when they own their own business, they're like, "Whoo, I get to work whenever I want, and I get to decide." But I mean, there's also that other aspect of yes, but also if you agree to a shift, you have to show up when you own your own business because that is your reputation. Sometimes people think owning a business is easy, but not always because you have a bigger commitment when you own your own business because that's you and that's your reputation. So those are things to think about as well. Sometimes it's just because you own your own business and you get to make your own schedule doesn't mean that, you get to be lazy and that you get to do whatever you want whenever you want necessarily. Because there's times where I've agreed to do a shift and I am like, why did I agree to do this? Like, what the hell was I thinking? But I still got to get up and I still got to go because it's my business now. I don't just work for somebody else anymore. I work for myself.
Exactly. And I've always said to everybody who I've met with that or other vet techs, I'm like, it's not your DVM's name on the door. That's your name on the door.
Right.
You gotta take that, you gotta take your job seriously. If
Right.
you don't show up, clients are gonna be like, she's undependable. I'm gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And yeah, even with me, if I have to reschedule, I will immediately pre-book their next day. I'm like, hey, I have an emergency. This was unexpected. I know you were scheduled for tomorrow. Do you mind if I accommodate you? We'll get you in on the weekend. And that's when I'll pop in and work on a weekend is if I feel like, okay, I don't want my client to think I'm unreliable. So we're just
Right.
going to reschedule you to the weekend and I get them in or we wait until their next rotation date. But yeah, just even having that communication and showing up is so, so important.
Yeah, yes. You have to be an over communicator when you own your own business. Because miscommunication is the thing that's going to hurt you the most, I feel like, or people feel ghosted or things like that. But also communicating like, hey, this is my business hours of when I'm going to communicate. It's really important. So we also just wanted to kind of share a special story with you guys of kind of just like how we even got into the veterinary field. I mean, everyone has their own story. And so I'm going to let Michelle kind of start first with like how she got into vet med and what inspired her. And then I will share my story. So, what was your journey into vet med, Michelle?
And so I feel like it starts off as a stereotypical, I knew since I wanted to be a kid, which I did. I was always trying to bring in all the critters. I remember one time I tried to home a butterfly. That didn't work out too well, but I always wanted to save everything and bring it home. And when I got to college, my first day, I was like, I want to go into vet med. And I remember the admissions officer's like, oh, that's a lot of math. And I struggled with math. So I was like, all right, never mind. I'll figure it out later. I'll just do my prereqs and I'll come back around to it. And about my second year of college, I went to a festival, a 4-H club, actually, and they had roller coasters and rides. And I saw this kid selling his rabbits. And I'm like, oh, you got a cute little bunny. I'll take one. And I'm like, what's his name? And I'm like, I'll come back for Buck in a few hours. I just want to hit up some of these rides real quick. And I can't take Buck with me, but I'll come back. I go back. And the 4-H club was shut down. And I'm like, oh, well, that sucks. I guess I'm not getting a rabbit today. And again, I never really had an interest in rabbits. I just was young. And I'm like, oh, it's here. It's available. I can afford it. Let me
It's
take
cute.
it. Yeah, right? It's like the modern day doodle. And I'm like, it's
Right.
cute. Let me just take it. Absolutely no research involved. And so the rabbit was gone. I didn't think too much of it. The next day, I remember I went to school and I went to go to my friend's house. And as I opened the door to my friend's house, I'm like greeted with this waft of smoke. So I'm kind of like initially a little confused and I can't see very well. And I feel myself trip over something. And I look down, and I see this little rabbit with her legs like dangling to the side and her like propped up with her body. And I was like, oh my God, Brie, I broke your rabbit. When do you have a rabbit? I'm like, I broke the rabbit. And I was like freaking out. And I go down and she's like, no, Michelle, she We just bought her yesterday from a lady on the side of the road. She was going to eat her if she didn't sell her. So we took her, but she was like, well, you'll give her a good home, right? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll take her home. So I swoop up this little paralyzed little bunny.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I put her in my car. And I remember I'm like, well, that's what you eat are carrots, right? Rabbits eat carrots. That's what I see in cartoons. So we're going to go to Kroger and get you a carrot here, little bunny. I named her Duchess. And I was like, I'm going to rehabilitate her. And again, at this point, no vet med background. I was still just taking my generic college classes.
Yeah.
And I took her to a vet. And it was like one of those old school vets. Like, dude had already been in his 60s.
Oh man.
And yeah, he prescribed me some liquid medication. And again, I don't know
Maybe
what it
Medicam?
was. Maybe Medicam. Yeah, it could have been anything. I don't know. But I remember he said, this may clear up, it may not. You'll know in a few months.
Oh,
And in
man.
that few months, I got attached to that little bunny. I took her to class with me in my little like side knapsack that was in style at the time. I took her to my friend's house with me. She just laid on the floor, but she never got better. And I realized as much as I was giving her the best life possible, I knew that there is no making it better.
Yeah.
And I made the really hard decision to euthanize her. I took it so hard. I just remember I went home that night and I sat on my porch and I was like, God, why? Why couldn't I save her? Like, why? And I had this epiphany. I'm like, what am I doing? This is where I belong. I need to be back. I need to do vet med. Like, I'm going back. And I remember it was a Tuesday night. I remember I just got done watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I was like, all right. So I went in on the next day, Wednesday morning, went to admissions. Like, I don't care how much math is involved. I'm doing this. And there was like no looking back. And when I think about it, I feel like there was some sort of divine intervention. What happens if I went back to that 4-H club and that buck rabbit was still there? I may not have taken the other rabbit. I would have got a healthy rabbit, felt bad about not fixing it. It didn't have any issues to be fixed. And so I think that something happened to say, no, Michelle, you got to suffer with this one. We're going to point you in the right direction. And now I have her tattooed on my shoulder. I registered the association on the anniversary that I euthanized her. That way the association would have some sort of meaning from her. So that's how I became a vet med, was trying to fix a broken bunny that I thought I broke.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, little bunny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's crazy. I can't even believe that. Especially like a paralyzed bunny. Obviously, anything with exotics, I'm always like, if there's anything wrong with an exotic, I automatically am like, oh, it's probably not gonna make it. And I mean, honestly, exotic veterinarians, like who are all about that, I'm like, kudos to you, because they're so fragile. They're so fragile, and they really just don't. I mean, just from my experience, there's something, especially paralyzed bunny, that honestly, like, that's why handling bunnies, for me, I don't even like to handle bunnies, because it's like you learn in school, as soon as you, like, if you pick it up wrong and it like jumps out of your arms, like, it's paralyzed. And I'm like, how about I just not even touch one? I just won't even touch a bunny. Like, I'm not even going to try to attempt to carry it. I remember one time I had a doctor who was like, I need you to take an x-ray on this bunny. And I was like, okay. And they're like, and I want you to do a VD. And I was like, that's terrifying to do on a bunny. I don't want to break its back. And she was like, I'll help you. I was like, okay, thank you. I am a dog, cat vet tech, like most of the time, like I've dealt with exotics. Obviously I had to do it in school and everything like that. But for the most part, I just don't want anything to do with them because they're so fragile. And I don't want to make anything worse.
Yes.
So no, I mean, that's such a sweet little story though. I mean, I feel like we all have something similar to that, right? Of being like, oh, you just nurtured and cared for something, and then you're like, oh, this would be cool to do all the time. Did you ever specifically want to be a veterinarian?
When I was in college, did not even know like vet tech was a thing. It was either like you were a DVM or somebody that worked for a DVM. And when I was doing some research, I found out that the techs had like more hands-on than the DVMs did. So in looking at the long-term goal, I was like, well, maybe I should go to vet tech school first and then maybe DVM school. But then after I graduated vet tech school, I was like, maybe not. I was like, I like what I do. I'm comfortable where I'm at. I get to help in some way. I don't have to be prescribing, diagnosing. I'm handling them. I'm the one who gets to give them the pets and the love and the reassurance. So that's why I went right into vet tech, and I found a program nearby.
Nice.
Yes. I was going to ask you, what about your story? I know we chatted about it a bit, but I really want to hear it.
Yeah. So ever since I was little, I obviously loved animals too. That's always everyone's story, right? Everyone, we just loved animals. I actually never really was allowed to have a dog growing up. My mom just wasn't about them. And she's like, well, we're never going to really take care of one properly. So there's no point in having one, which was like realizing that now. That's completely fair, right? If you're not going to properly do what you can for a dog, then you shouldn't own one. But
Right
ever
on.
since I was little, I always wanted a dog. I asked Santa for a dog every year, and Santa never got me one. And I was like, oh, well, Santa must not love me very much because I still don't have a dog. But as like got older, too, I always knew that I wanted to work with animals. And my mom would like tell everyone like, well, Jen wants to be a veterinarian. And I remember specifically always being like, I do not want to be a veterinarian. And I used to say that like, no, I don't want to be a veterinarian. And she'd be like, well, honey, like that's the only thing that you can do with animals. Like there's no other choice. And I was like, no, like I'll figure it out. But I'm working with animals, but no, I never really wanted to be a doctor. I had no idea vet techs existed. I come from a family of human nurses. So my grandpa was an OR nurse. My mom's an ER nurse. My cousin's a nurse. So I know my grandpa was kind of like pushing for it a little bit, like where he was like, I know you love animals, but you know, nursing is a really good job and it's a safe career. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I just know that I want to do something with animals. And I really always loved wild animals and wolves. And I loved researching. And, you know, there were a couple different avenues where I was like, oh, I'll go into zoology because I really loved to research and really wanted to do something with the Yellowstone wolves, whether that was just kind of getting into the research of that. I just really didn't know at the time. So I think when I was like teen, I was just trying to get a job, just anything. And I thought, oh, well, I'll work at Petco, right? Because I mean, I feel like that's another thing that people are like, oh, that's kind of an easy in with the animals to start. Like, I'll just work at Petco. I drastically failed that interview. The interview was horrible. I had my first job was at Safeway. And I really just like did management. It's just like your first job, and there's just like things that happen, and you're like, well, I don't think that's fair. And I remember when I did the interview at Petco, they were like, where was your previous job? And I told them, and I was too honest about the things that I disliked about the job. And I remember going and talking to my boyfriend at the time about it. And he was like, how'd you do? And I was like, I think it went really well. I told them, they asked me this, and I told them this. And he was like, no, absolutely not. He's like, you are not going to get that job. He's like, you cannot say those things. And I was like, why? I was telling the truth. And he's like, no, sometimes you cannot tell the full truth. Like especially like, no. And I was like, crap, I didn't even think about that. And obviously I did not get a call back from Petco. So at that point in time, I wasn't really like desperate for a job, but I really want to do something while I'm in college. So I kind of just started going around to all of the different veterinary clinics in the area and just kind of gave them a resume and told them that I wanted to volunteer. Pretty much every single one of them were like, that's nice, thanks, and then never called me back. I think I walked into a couple of them, and then I finally walked into one, and I talked to the receptionist and said the same thing. And she's like, let me grab somebody for you. And she's like, I'll go grab Stephanie. He came out and she asked me, she's like, hey, I heard that you are interested in volunteering. She's like, well, do you want to volunteer or do you want a job shadow? And I had no clue what job shadowing was. Like, I was clueless at 18. And I was like, ooh, but I mean, it has the word job in it and I'm looking for a jobs. I want a job shadow. Like maybe like, I don't know. For some reason, I thought like job shadowing meant like I get to shadow you and eventually I'll get a job. I don't know. But I was like, yeah, I want a job shadow. So we did that. And she was like, well, do you want to follow around a veterinarian or do you want to follow around a vet tech? And I was like, what's a vet tech? I have no idea what a vet tech is. And she started explaining to me, she's like, a vet tech is, you know, we assist the veterinarians and we do blood work and we do lab work and we do anesthesia. And, you know, in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, that almost sounds like a nurse for animals. And I was like, I want a job shadow the vet tech. I want to see what it's all about. And so that's what I did. I job shadowed, honestly, I cannot remember. I job shadowed for maybe a week or two. And then they kind of started having me do stuff like cleaning the instruments and like cleaning kennels and things like that. And then I remember I was like sitting there and they were like, do you want to clean something? And I was like, yeah, just give me something to do. I'd love to help no matter what. And like even taking temperatures. And then finally they were like, hey, do you want a job? We need to hire. Like, do you want to work as a kennel assistant? And I was like, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
They hired me. And like, that's kind of where that all started from. I started working as kennel and then I eventually moved my way up to assistant. And, you know, I was on the job trained. It was very eye-opening. I learned a lot really quickly. That is how I started in the veterinary field. And once I knew about it, and once I knew about like how the vet tech, how, what they did, I was like, wow, seems like it would be really fun in an actual career. And then I kind of talked to my boss, who was Stephanie, and she said that she was going to school to get licensed. And I was like, okay, so this is a legit thing, because there was a lot of people there that weren't licensed. And so I just started doing more and more research on it. I still wanted to get my bachelor's degree and pursue that, but I don't know, like it always just tugged at me that how much I loved the veterinary technician job. So, I'm still here. I eventually got licensed and I don't regret it at all. I know that there's a lot of people who do regret still being in this field, or they don't last very long in this field, but I absolutely don't. To this day, I am so, so happy that that I just stumbled into that vet clinic one day, and that happened. It literally, my life would be so different if I had never even thought of, I mean, if I ended up getting that Petco job, I would have never been here right now. Like, I can guarantee that, because it wasn't even a thought in my brain. I was like, well, I'll just go around to some of the vet clinics and see what happens. So, I feel like everything happens for a reason.
Everything. That clinic was my Duchess. It was some sort of
divine intervention.
Yeah, divine intervention. Be like, no, this is where you belong. Stop jerking around. This is where you need to go. And yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I think me and you discussed not too long ago that the average lifespan of a veterinary technician, I believe, was 5 to 7 years in the past surveys, and now it's gone down to 4 to 6.
Right.
So it's one of those things of me and you, so far we defied the odds. We've been in it longer than that, but we have found ways to reinvent ourselves. And that's what we're hoping to do here today, is help technicians who are at that point, at that 4 to 6 point, at that 5 to 7 point, to reinvent themselves like me and Jen did.
Right. Yeah. And I've been in this field since 2009. I believe.
Oh, me too. I didn't know that. Okay, that's I graduated vet tech school. Yeah, I graduated vet tech school spring 2009. Yeah.
Well, see, okay, so I've been licensed since 2016, but I've been in the field since 2009. I started from the bottom of the bottom, like assistant, vet assistant, on the job trained, and then became licensed. So you've been licensed longer than me. And I mean, so what is that? Okay, I can't do math in my head, but I'm really good at medical math, but not like regular math. What is that, like 16?
25? No, it can't be 25. We're not that old.
For 2009?
2009,
so
and we're in
2025. 2025. 16
God,
years.
We're vintage techs.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I mean, like,
we're elder techs.
We've lasted this long. But I mean, like, I know that I've gone through, like, multiple, things where I'm like, I need to back off. I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. Yeah. And I know that a lot of people in this field think the exact same thing. I mean, you look on all of the vet tech Facebook groups and they're all saying, I don't know if I can deal with this anymore. I can't deal with the hazing, the bullying, the toxic work environments, the clients who, feel like we don't feel appreciated. We don't get paid enough. I mean, half of the people that are working in this field are working 2 to 3 jobs just so they can afford their bills.
Yeah. Or they're doing side hustles. They're, feet pics, OF, like something to supplement their income on the side. Like we're doing it all. Like, well, not me. I'm old but like everybody is doing some sort of side hustle, and like mobile nail trimming and anal glands is one of them. And it is. Right. It's heartbreaking to see these techs are like, I've been in the field for 3 years. I'm burnt out. I'm going to work at Costco because they have better membership.
Yeah.
They have better health insurance and the hours aren't crazy and it's not as stressful. And I'm like, we're losing credentialed veterinary technician to Costco. Like, we need to wake up and think about other ways to start trying to fix this problem than a pat on the back and a damn pizza party from the corporations, because if not, we're going to run out of people.
Right. So at this point in time, do you want to talk about why you decided to leave the actual clinical field and talk about what made you want to start your own actual mobile veterinary technician business?
So after I graduated vet tech school, I was in the mindset of you show up, You work hard, you do a good job, and give a good firm handshake, and the boss will take care of you. That was what my father had instilled on me, was you show up, you work good. So like the first couple of clinics, I was like, I found my job. I'm gonna retire from here, because that's how my dad did. He stepped into GM and he just like worked there for 36 years and just retired. So I thought that was my life as a vet tech. I was going to be in a clinic and just retire from there. Well, that was wrong. Um, I, yeah, boy, did I have a hard reality.
Yep.
And especially my first several years were really rocky, because I didn't have the confidence in myself as a technician, and I was very nervous. And I graduated during the Great Recession. I mean, I went through a lot of clinics in my first couple of years, almost embarrassing, but persevered. I finally got comfortable in my skills. And that's when, unfortunately, my father got diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Oh, man.
And I'm his only daughter, and a lot of it fell onto me. And now at this point, I'm a little bit more secure in my clinical skills. I am more secure at the clinics I've been working at, but my father's health came first. I knew I was on limited time with my dad. He raised me as a single parent since I was in third grade. We were very bonded. I had a wonderful dad, so seeing him deteriorate slowly was causing a lot of conflict with my last two clinics, because I had to have a set schedule. And I needed to take care of him, and that was my priority, was taking care of my dad.
Right.
And luckily, right before COVID had start, I had found what I thought was my dream job, was working for a corporation, not a huge one, but a mid-sized corporation. And they had the opportunity to work from home before work from home was a thing. And I met my boss, and he was cool. Like he was like, yeah, and I was up front. I was like, hey, my dad has Alzheimer's, and it might be choppy, but I'm bringing this out to you on the table. If you want to hire me or not, like, that's up to you. And believe it or not, he was like, I appreciate your honesty. He was like, with your background in veterinary sales, he's like, you're going to be a good fit for this job. And it was a really interesting pilot idea that they were launching. So I was actually the first one they hired onto the team to launch this project. Well, COVID hit not too much longer later, and management had changed. I went from one team to another team. And when I say bullying begins at the top, y'all, it begins at the top in these corporations. My first boss was cool. He give me the fist pow, good job, high fives. Like, dude, some of these girls were drinking champagne at 4:00 on Friday. Like, I had a great team.
Yeah.
And then once they put me under the under team, this woman who I worked under was awful. I don't know how else to say it.
Right.
And she slowly bullied me out. She pushed me out. I reached out for help, and I did not get the help. And I was let go. But I clung on to that. And once I lost that job, I was in such a dark place, because, in my opinion, I had landed a very unique role that most vet techs don't get to land.
Yeah.
And it was devastating. I stayed in my bed for about 2.5 weeks watching I Love Daisy from like 2007, eating Doritos in my bathrobe, depressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just didn't know where to go next. And one day I was hanging out on Facebook, and somebody in my local community groups was like, I can't get my dog into the groomer. I can't get my dog into the vet. They really need a nail trim. And I'm like, well, I ain't got nothing better to do today. I just lost my job a few months ago, so I'll come over. Sure. Pay me $10 cash. I'll do it. Sounds like a great plan. And that's where it started. And I walked I walked into my first client's house with nothing but a fanny pack, the big orange clippers, Quick Stop, and a bag of treats. That's all I had at the time. And I was like, oh, well, that wasn't so bad. And then in September is when I really was like, I think we're going to go with this. I just kept on getting people saying, hey, I heard you do this. Do you want to come do this for my pet? And it snowballed. And then I think it was during my honeymoon. We were out in Colorado, so it had been October of 2021. I looked at my husband, and I'm like, I think I want to stick with this nail trimming, anal glanding thing. I'm like, it's panning out much more better than anything. And my plan was to ultimately become a drug rep. I wanted to be an outside sales drug rep, because I'm good with selling stuff. And I was like, I feel like this is more stable. And I like the people I work with. So we'll just see where it goes. And so, again, I always say it was the accident that was not supposed to happen. And looking back, that individual who let me go And she let me go partly because I was standing up for the techs and they wanted production and I needed to get in help for the techs. I thank her.
Yeah.
She did me a favor. Because of her, I started my own business. Then I started the Unattached Vet Tech Group, which is where me and you met on Facebook. So other vet techs, yep. So other vet techs who are solo, doing mobile nail trimming or doing relief work can meet, chat, conversate. It's a space for us. And then after that's when I formed the association and I officially met you.
Right.
And then we started doing the podcast. And now I've talked with about 20 technicians from across the country about how to start their own businesses. I didn't charge. I'm just like, hey, just come at me with questions. I got your back. Just let me know. We'll get you through this. And I know I've helped technicians leave those toxic clinics. I know there's a few of them who spoke to me and a week later, they're like, we quit. We're doing this now. So that is such an inspiring feeling. And at the end of the day, I think that was another divine intervention of them changing my position into, you know, under another individual who valued production over technicians during COVID.
Right.
And now I'm still helping technicians and I thank her for that. So thank you for firing me. Just want to say.
Right? Like, oh my gosh.
You know who you are. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. You're like, hopefully, thanks. Hopefully you're listening. Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully, I actually saw her on a plane coming back from WVC. And
weird.
She made eye contact with me. I made eye contact with her. And I'm just like, and she's like, yeah, you could tell it was awkward. I'm like, yeah, what's up?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you can't even hold resentment anymore because look at where you're at today. Look at how much you've done. I think there's so many, you know, like quote unquote bad things that we think are happening to us at the time. And then, you know, and then we look at where we're at now and we're like, okay, no, it was supposed to happen. All of those things were supposed to happen for a reason, to be right where we're at right now. Because at the end of the day, you know, I mean, both me and you have talked about, like, we're on the same page. Our goal is to keep veterinary technicians in the field, credentialed veterinary technicians in this field, because there's so many that are leaving. And, you know, everyone's been burned in some way, shape, or form in this field. And, you know, everyone has been upset at someone at some point. And, you know, I think that we have to change our mindsets a little bit when we think bad things are happening. We have to realize that it's just moving us on to where we're supposed to be. My journey of why I started my own relief business is, again, it's pretty similar. I feel like we all just share the same stories and the same journeys in some way, shape, or form. I, you know, started off at that clinic, and that's where I learned the majority of, you know, of my training was, you know, at that specific general practice. I had such a great time there. I met so many great people. I learned so many things. I had such an amazing boss. And in the owner of the clinic, he was so amazing. He was the same thing, like old school, like I believe he was in his 60s, and just, it was a really, really good first job, but it just wasn't enough for me. I just felt like at some point I had been working there for a while and I was getting really bored, and I was starting to think like, gosh, I don't know if I can do this the rest of my life. Like I do love the job, but I'm not getting stimulated enough. Like I've reached my peak in a way. And don't get me wrong, I still had a lot to learn. I was the same way. I had such little confidence. And that stemmed from when I was a kid. You know, I can't even say that, you know, what had anything to do with the clinic in and of itself. Like, people were really good with me and they were very encouraging and the way they taught me, but I was so hard on myself. Like, if I couldn't get like a jugular stick, or if I couldn't like get an IV catheter in, or, you know, I mean, I would go home and I would cry, and I would sit at night and I would think about all of the mistakes that I did for the day, and I would just sit there and I would cry. And I'd be like, I'm not good enough for this. I don't know. I want this so bad, but I don't know if I'm good enough. And I remember I was struggling with money. Me and my boyfriend at the time, we were just like really just trying to, you know, make as much money as possible. And the local emergency clinic was hiring. And Stephanie, who had hired me at this GP, was also working at the local emergency clinic. And she had mentioned to me, she was like, hey, I know that you're needing some extra money. I think I was working, so the clinic was closed on Sundays, but I was so desperate for money. I was cleaning the clinic on Sundays, like for 8 hours. Oh. Like, I was like, I will come. I'm not getting enough hours. I will clean. I will like, deep clean the clinic. So that's what I was doing. And then that's when she was like, hey, the local emergency clinic is hiring if you want to work there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could never work emergency. I could not do that. I am not good enough. enough. And I remember Stephanie being like, if you can work here, you can work emergency. It's not as difficult as you think that it is. And I was like, I just don't know. She's like, it's fine. I will refer you. You'll do fine. So I started working at the local emergency clinic and I fell in love with emergency. It was so new, it was so different, and it was a lot less staff to have to I don't like to say to have to compete with, but there's just a lot less opportunity at a general practice when there's so many people to do things. I used to always be that person where I'd be like, well, I mean, you're better at this than I am, so you might as well just do it. And I was that person. So when I started working the emergency clinic, there was such little staff. I remember one of the first things is I walked in on one of my first couple days and the doctor and the technician were working on a case and they were like, hey, you're here. Great. We're the only two that are here right now. There is a euthanasia in the comfort room and we need an IV catheter placed. So if you could go do that. And I remember standing there and I'm thinking, wait, me by myself? I have to place it myself? So I kind of standing there and I was like, well, if you guys are the only ones here, is there someone to help me? And they both were like, nope, if you could just go place it, that'd be great. And I was like, okay. And so, and I had to do it in front of the owner, which I'm pretty sure this was the first time that I had to do something like that, even in front of an owner. So I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking in my head and I'm screaming in my head, I can't do this, but I did it. And I went in there and I think I placed it in a back leg by myself with the owner. Everything was fine. And I successfully did it. And I was like, okay. All right, this is what I need. This is the challenge that I need, because maybe I was babied a little bit too much where I would be like, oh, well, I can't do that. Somebody better can just do it. And then somebody who was better did it because I didn't give myself the opportunity to do it. And so that changed my whole trajectory of working in emergency. I eventually left the general practice for the emergency clinic. And I worked there for 8 years. And to this day, my boss and also the owner of the local emergency clinic, best boss I've ever had in my entire life. So supportive of everything. I mean, even to this day, she's still super supportive of me and building this business. She was really supportive of my nutrition business that I had. Honestly, it was her idea where she was like, hey, you're really good at nutrition. You should start doing consults for people. And she paid for my continuing education on that. Just an incredible person, an incredible boss. And so like you said, the people who are above you, they will build you and they will help grow you. That is where it's all going to happen. And that's how it's going to build your confidence. I did eventually leave that emergency clinic just because it was at that point too where I was just working every single weekend and I really didn't have much of a social life. And I really just centered that job around my whole life. And I was also kind of going through I went through a divorce with my first husband. I just needed a really big change. But I feel like I had reached my peak again, at that clinic. I wasn't really learning anything new. I wasn't challenged anymore. I felt horrible leaving, but then I also was really burnt out and I thought that emergency was the reason and that I just needed to leave and I just needed a break. So I left and I ended up working at another general practice because again, I just thought that I needed to leave emergency, that I just needed a break from it. But I went back to general practice and I freaking hated it. I hated it so much. I was bored. It's like taking a step backwards for me.
I see it. Yeah, I can see it.
And I did it because I got the perfect schedule. I was getting weekends off, pretty much almost every weekend off, but it just wasn't for me. Everyone knows people who work in the vet field, right? If you work in general practice or if you work in emergency or if you've ever worked with somebody of the opposite clinical field, we're all different. Emergency people are different than general practice people, and general practice people are different than emergency people. And it's just where you fit in best. And it's not that I didn't necessarily fit in at the general practice. It wasn't for me, but I was in major denial of that because I was also one of those people where I don't quit things, even if I don't like them. So that was really hard for me, but I knew that I wasn't passionate about working at the general practice like I was at the emergency clinic. My heart just wasn't in it. But again, I wasn't going to quit because I don't quit things.
You're not a quitter.
I'm not a quitter, but this is another blessing in disguise of just kind of moving me along. The owner of the clinic knew that my heart wasn't in it. He, and that was really important to him, which is completely fair, to know that, that his staff was just as passionate about his clinic as he was. And I think that he knew, and he just didn't see it in me. And so he let me go. And I know that there was talk about people potentially getting laid off, and it had kind of been talked about in meetings and stuff like that. And I was the most recent one to be hired. So I had already kind of assumed that if it was going to happen, it was probably going to be me. Yeah. But I had never been laid off before. I'd never been fired. That was not something that had ever happened to me before. And so it was a mixture of feelings with that, as far as like, I know that this is a good thing, but it also feels really shitty to be let go. And it's just like, gosh, it's just like, you just feel like you're worthless. You feel like betrayed. Nothing. Yeah, yep. You do feel betrayed. And so it was just like this weird feeling of like, felt relieved when it happened, but I also felt horrible at the same time. And I didn't have a backup plan. Like, always had a backup plan. I've always had a plan B. I've always had a job. And so I remember coming home and just like crying to he was my boyfriend at the time, now my second husband, who I love so much, and he was just super supportive of me. And that, where he was, and he didn't even know when I told him. I was like, well, I haven't really been happy. And he was like, you haven't? And I said, no. And he's like, why didn't you tell me? And I'm like, because I just, I don't know, because
he wanted to be proud of you, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was a really hard thing, because he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I had no idea. I did try to go back to the emergency clinic that I had previously worked for. I was like, well, maybe they'll just take me back. And they were fully staffed at the time. And so the owner was like, no, I'm sorry. Like, we're fully staffed. We can have you work some relief shifts and fill-in shifts, but I can't hire you full time. And so I was even more devastated, where I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I think, so my husband had told me, I think you just need to take a break. I think that you just need to really figure out what you want to do. And so I think I took 2 months off, and it was a roller coaster ride. It was an emotional roller coaster ride, where I was depressed. I was sad.
Spinning.
I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know, like, should I even stay in the veterinary field? Like, is that even for me? And I remember we went to like a vacation stay with all of our friends. And before everyone got there, me and my husband had gone out to dinner. And I remember like reading an article from, I think it was Liz Houston.
I love her. Just saying. Yeah.
Yes. I'm pretty sure it was her. And I just read an article about relief and like doing relief. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is something that I would really want to do. I love to travel, and I could just work relief, and then I could make my own schedule, and I can own my own business. And, and then my husband was like, well, okay, well, why don't you just do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not ready for that. I don't think I'm ready for that. This is just talk. And he was always just like, send it, like, just do it. And I'm like, oh no, but maybe one day. And then I kind of talked to him, where I was like, no, I think that I don't think I have enough experience yet. I think I want to learn more skills before I officially go relief. And he's like, okay. So I applied to one of the other emergency clinics in one of the big city areas. I ended up, like, they literally called me. Like, I applied, and they literally like called me within minutes, and they were like, we want an interview with you, like, want to hire you. And so I went through the whole process, and they ended up offering me $8 more than I'd ever gotten before.
Sweet.
Yeah. It started off really, really well. And I worked there for a couple of years, and that's the clinic that I still do relief for the majority of my time right now. But I learned so much there. I learned way more skills, things that I didn't know how to do before, like placing NG tubes. And I didn't really have a lot of opportunity to do like cystocentesis. So I've been able to do that, placing nasal cannulas, working with a ventilator during surgery. So all of those skills I was able to learn. And then once I learned those skills, kind of the same thing, where it's like I had the perfect schedule, I had everything I wanted, and then, new management, things changed, and then my schedule changed. And that's when I was like, well, if my schedule is going to change, then I think this is my opportunity to go relief. And I remember talking to my husband about it right before I kind of knew that my schedule was going to change. I was like, so if this happens, what are you thinking if I did start my own relief business? He's like, do it. Like, yes, this is the time. Like, this is the sign. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to go into this meeting. And that's exactly what happened. They were like, yeah, well, things are going to change. Hours are going to change. And that's when I was like, well, I think I'm going to decide to go relief. And that's what I did. So I quit there full time, and it was kind of scary because as I had to figure out when I had that conversation with them, they got rid of my health insurance pretty much right away that weekend. So I was like, oh, I'm not even gonna have health insurance. I really got to figure this out. Yeah. So it was all kind of a spiral of trying to figure out all of that at one time. And I don't know how you felt when you started yours, but there was a lot of back and forth with me where I was so happy and excited, but then there were times where I was like, what the fuck am I thinking? Why am I doing this? Like, am I just being stubborn? Like, am I the asshole? Am I just being stubborn just because I want a different schedule? Or, why am I making this more difficult on myself? And then my husband, he was the biggest supporter in all of it because he was like, no, this is what you need to do. I don't care if it gets hard. We will do whatever we need to do. If this is what you want to do, this is what's going to happen. But there were so many times where I was just so scared, and then I would cry, and then I'd be happy, and then I'd be sad, and then I'd be like, what am I doing? Roller coaster ride of emotions. So and now I'm at where I'm at today, right? And then this was in October of 2024. And this was right before I went to Greece and everything. I was like, I'm quitting my full-time job. I'm going to go to Greece. I'm going to have a great time. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to figure it the fuck out. And then I came back and I was like literally on the we were in the plane and we were coming back and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have a job. What do I do? What am I doing? It sounds great, when you're in Europe and you're like, oh yeah, I just quit my full-time job. And now I'm like, what the hell? And I mean, and the clinic was great because they still wanted me. They even said, they were like, we don't want to lose you full time. And I was like, I understand that, but I just think this is an opportunity that I need to take for myself. And I think that this is a sign, Some people think that that's weird, but no, this is
clearly a sign.
Yeah. So I'm going to do it. And I remember even saying, I think when I got back, they had a meeting with me where they were like, we'd really like to work things out with you to keep you full time. And I remember just sitting in that meeting and saying, no, this is something I really need to do for myself. And this is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And if it doesn't work out, I'd be happy to come and be here full time again. But this is something that I need to do and figure this out. And if it works out, I'm going to be so happy. And if it doesn't, then I know that I have other options. Hey everyone, it's Jen from Endless Journeys, the Vet Tech Odyssey podcast. We wanted to let you know that our first episode turned out to be a bit longer than we expected. After receiving some valuable feedback, we decided it would be best to break it into 2 parts to make it more digestible and enjoyable for you guys. We're excited to share that both part 1 and part 2 are available today, so you can dive right into the full conversation at your own pace. We really appreciate your support, and we hope you enjoy both parts of this episode. So much for tuning in to Endless Journeys, the Vet Tech Odyssey podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found some valuable insights. If you did, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave us a review and let us know what you think. You can also connect with us on all social media platforms at Endless Journeys, the Vet Tech Odyssey podcast. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep making a positive impact in the veterinary world. We need you guys. Have a great day.